All right, red lights on. What's happening, Feast and friends? Welcome to another Saturday night. Tonight's going to be a fun one. Although my on air sign did burn out today. I was working on a reel and knocked it off, and I don't know what I did, but we are on air. So I see the red light on. Looks like we are good there. Let us know if you can hear audio, everyone. But I've got Cesar on tonight, which he's been requested multiple times. I wanted to have Cesar on for quite some time and just never reached out. But he was nice enough to hop on at kind of a short notice. So, my friend, I appreciate you hopping on.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So we're gonna pick your brain tonight because I was just talking to him beforehand. And Caesar was actually, I know I told you guys this weeks ago whenever I reached out. Caesar was one of the only couple of Swimbait guys that actually responded back to me, and he was cool enough to help me. It's been like years ago when I was painting stuff. I asked him a couple questions, and he responded. We were kind of talking about uh, people maybe not being so open to some of this stuff and bait making, and maybe even swim bait stuff too, because I've asked questions and people were like, nah. So, but that's what we're going to get into tonight is a little bit of everything. So Caesar, give us your your elevator speech of your fishing kind of starting and wherever you want to take it. Just tell us.
Well, I'm here because I'm broken. I'm a broken angler. Like, there's nothing I think about other than fishing, and besides my family. I got Carl. Carl's a fisherman. My guy right here.
Yeah, I got a stubby dog. He's not here. He's gone right now. But
we're on the air, bro. You don't care.
Hey, he likes it. He's chill.
Yeah, like I just really, since I got into it, for some reason, I just got the bug, and I enjoy fishing because it's the puzzle, right? Like, I like pulling on big fish. Like, I like reeling fish in and all the stuff, right? But the part for me of fishing is like cracking the code, like getting the bite, not just like going and catching a fish, but like executing whatever it is, my plan, or it's almost like being like a detective, or whatever it is. You're like trying to figure it out, and you zone it in. And then I'm so broken that I'll like, all right, they're eating this bait. I wonder if they'll eat a red version, but it's like the bite stops because you switch to the red, you got to go back, and maybe the window's over. But like, I've always had that kind of like, I want to extrapolate on what this is, or like, this works. Will it work this way or over here or doing this? So I think that's what draws me to fishing. And I've just like, and I really like, I was lucky enough to move to the Delta. In the Delta.
So like California, fishing, for everybody that doesn't know, he's out in Cali.
Yeah, there's only a couple tidal delta systems in the United States that hold bass. Maybe not a couple. The Mississippi River Delta, the Potomac. We have the Delta in California, and I think there's other tidal rivers, right? Like St. John's River, I'm sure is tidal. Sure. In Florida, but like as a delta, is a massive delta system that people talk about bass fishing. Like, the delta is iconic for bass fishing.
Right.
In California, it's different than some places. I'm so hard delta that like I've been places and you gotta drive through the gate, right? Like, you go to a lake, it's a reservoir. I understand impoundments, right? Like Army Corps of Engineer impoundments that they do for us as the population. But I just don't get the feeling of like the Delta is like freedom, right? It's just like, it's governed by maritime law because it's connected to the ocean. And there's no like closing time. There's not like you got
to be out of the park by 10 or whatever.
No, there's no weird stuff like that. It's like, I could go on my boat and do whatever I please, out on the water. With not like, because I want to do this or that, like it's a negative aspect.
Right. It's freedom.
Positive thing. Like, I could just be there and enjoy myself and and doing what I like to do, like figuring that stuff out. So the Delta was a big part of that. Cause like when I go to lakes, I really like, it's fun to fish, but I really enjoy being open. That's why now that I moved to Long Beach, the ocean's very intriguing to me. Like I take my boat out there and I'm driving to the oil rig, right? But when you look past an oil rig, it's just ocean,
Right.
It's
Right.
and I've always been really attracted to water. I've never had like a fear of water. Before I bought a car, I bought a boat when I was 16. I had a boat before I had a car. I had a bass boat when I was 18.
Dang.
I've just always really been gravitated towards the water, and the Delta was when I was able to do it. It was fishing, right? Like,
Sure.
I'm sure if I grew up here, I'd be like in the water surfing and things like that because that's what was available. Because I'm just like, I just need to be around there for some reason, right? It's attractive to me. But fishing is just like, I don't know, man. I don't have a hobby. I don't, I enjoy my family and the people that I love.
That's
and my
like
friends.
so many of us.
That's it. Yeah,
especially,
man.
especially when we get older, both of us are 40. So it's like,
Yeah.
I don't really have many friends. I go fishing, I work, I come home, spend time with my family, and look online at fishing stuff when I can't go anywhere. So,
Man, and I'm, it's like I'm so good with that.
yeah, it's dude. Yeah, as you get older, it's like I'm cool with what they say. When you're young, you find ways to get out of the house so you can go party. When you get old, you find ways to get out of partying and going somewhere so you can stay at your house.
Yeah, man. It's like it's cool. It actually, yeah. I enjoyed being here. I have a beautiful home here with my girl that I share, and like I'm right by the beach.
Hell yeah.
Starting this new little chapter, but
That's
I
awesome.
needed a new start regardless, just, for life. I had a lot of turmoil, but, it's like, I've always kind of put, I don't know how to say it. Like I don't put work on the back burner, but I make sure that I live is where I want to be when I'm not doing it. Oh,
Sure.
like I don't have to
Makes
leave
sense.
my house.
You only get one shot at life, so it's like,
Yeah, like I don't work and I'm at my house and then, I'm like, all right, it's the weekend, I'm gonna go somewhere. Like I could just go, I drive 2 miles to the launch ramp and the Long Beach break wall is I just idle out to the Long Beach break wall. It's like a legendary
crazy.
calico bass place. I had a banner day the other day where I couldn't even pull on any more fish. My arms hurt. I was pulling on so many fish, and it was just me and my dog. It's pretty. That's the stuff that I like. Like I enjoy people and I enjoy the city. I don't like fishing because it's like I love to be around nature, right? But I don't like run from the city or convenience or anything like that. I can't explain it. Like
I get it. So where does the bait making come in then? How do you transition from fishing to just like picking up baits? Was it just like
it's not even a transition?
This?
It's not even a transition for me personally.
See, that's what I mean though. For a lot of people fish, but not everybody makes baits. So what was were you looking for something that somebody didn't have, or were you just like, oh, this would be fun, something I can do at home?
No. When I rode a motorcycle, I built my own parts. When I got into knives, I tried to make a knife. Like, that's what I say. It's just me, like
the hands-on aspect.
And not for any reason, like I could do it better. That's never been like a thing of like,
okay.
I do it better. It's just like, dang. Let me see. We can. I'm not gonna be able to see the screen. But we're just gonna go off the reservation here, and you can see like this is my workstation, right? But like these aren't hooks that are for baits right now. I just seen them while I was shopping and was like, oh, let's see how sharp those are. And like these new baits I've been working on, these little. My girl wants me to call them the ball chinian because it's like got these bug eyeballs. I don't know how good the camera is right now. But
yeah, I saw you were getting into soft plastic stuff.
So yeah, like, I got into swim baits because like in high school, I had a jig company because I thought jigs caught the biggest fish, and a company is quote unquote, but I made them different. I made flipping football heads. It was a football head made to flip because that time in the Delta, the weeds weren't all the way crazy. This was still the 90s. And there was a lot of wood, and football head's the best for wood because it doesn't come through, right? But it doesn't snag either. So skinny jigs will come through the wood, or they might wedge. A football head will just knock on it. So you just could knock it and then just
pops up over,
or free spool it and let it fall again, and then lift it again and hit that tree, like hit the bonk, 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 and they would crush it. But no one made it. So, and then I was like dipping the heads in epoxy instead of powder paint. And then I was dyeing the epoxy with chalk. I don't even know if you're supposed to do that. There wasn't anything. So I don't know. I'm like a weird tinkerer type.
That's fun. Yeah. Yeah. I enjoy that.
Swimbaits was though. There wasn't a lot of stuff. There was like a monster jack. The monster jack was around. I made like a waking bluegill. I made wooden baits, poppers and stuff. But then I seen a monster jack, but it didn't do what I wanted it to do. And I built a waking crank to imitate baby bass so me and my brother-in-law could win tournaments.
So let's talk about, let's start there because I've shown this one. I talked about this a while back.
Okay.
So you've got the Wade hogs. You had the
Wade
old
Jr.
Wade Jr. Yes. So you've got the old resin ones. This is the new ABS one that I was telling people about.
Yep.
It's like what, $60 or something, so affordable.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see a lot of these, they're like 200, 150, $200. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't ever knock, there's a lot of work and soul that goes into homemade baits. I know just alone from painting how much work it is. But it's just, I didn't want to come out the gate spending that much. So I guess my first question is what kind of advice would you give to some of us swim bait noobs like myself with, let's say, like a glide bait versus like a wake bait? I don't know. Start there. I'll open the doors. I don't know where this is going to go. Sure. Fish and friends, give us some questions here, but I'm opening the doors with that.
Well, first of all, for anybody that's listening, the normal version of that bait you have is $135, right? 125, 135 bucks.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter big or small. They're about the difference in material. I don't care what any bait maker says. If they say different, I don't know why they would. It's like $1, $2. Like for a giant bait, resin is not expensive when you're talking in ounces and filler, right? Micro balloon filler. There's a lot of that. That's pretty cheap, So we're not talking about like, oh, it's a big bait, so I raised the price $60 to cover material. It's just like it's a lot of work, even
it's
the
time.
small.
Yeah, mixing it, pouring it, setting it.
Yeah. So like, I try to charge more for my bigger ones and less for my smaller ones because they offset each other. You know what I mean? Like, I really want that in the middle kind of thing because the small ones are the same amount of work. And then, so that being said, if I had $1 billion and I could make whatever I wanted to fish out of anything, I would use ABS, me personally. A lot of guys would say resin. There's nothing wrong with ABS. There's no stigma like, oh, you're going to smash it into the rocks. You can smash my bait, the tail of the resin bait into the rock at the wrong angle and it'll break. But if you send it to me, I'll repair it. Yeah,
we'll get into that all.
Baits break though, right? Like if you're constantly thinking about your bait breaking, I don't care if you're throwing a $30 Japanese style crankbait, right? Or an expensive crankbait, you can still break it. I do it all the time. Old speed traps used to break because they were so thin. Like if you slapped them on the water to get weeds off, they'd break in half. But I still bought them by the box because they were super effective. So don't think that because you're getting an ABS bait or it's cheaper that you're getting an inferior product. First of all, I want people to understand that, especially when you're new to swim baits. I haven't put my hands on other people's baits, but these baits right here are reflections of my real bait. And now that of the resin version, and I throw these now. I don't like make these and throw my resin stuff. And I don't throw them because they're my new bait and I should. I throw them because I believe that they're at or above the same level. The full size Wade hogs caught an 11 pounder after we had it for 2 months. out of production.
Damn.
So, and that's my buddy Joey's a guide out there, but that's the biggest Delta fish he's ever caught. So doing everything all year, the ABS version of the weight, and he's thrown the wade hogs and caught a 10-pounder at Clear Lakes on the resin version, right? So like, and on the Delta plenty of times, and the ABS still caught his biggest fish. So I think that could be a stigma because I hear people say that.
I've heard that. I've heard the same thing.
Nah, get the bait and let the fish tell you, first of all, because a lot of people think they can look at a bait and how it swims and say that it's going to be a fish catcher. And that's definitely not true. And knowing this,
I'm guilty of it, not with swim baits, but other baits. I'll be like, dude, that one looks good. I bet that'll. Then you throw it and you're like,
I do it too. I do it too, right? But like, me giving you advice to have success in it as an angler, like the MS Slammers, right? History lesson, MS Slammer, iconic swim bait, still great. Mike Shaw still makes an amazing wooden bait. It's a wake bait. It catches fish. It still does. Simplicity at its finest, right?
I've got one. Somebody sent me one.
Yes, MS Slammer, right? Now, I would buy them used from people that said that they got defective ones because Mike cut the joint crooked, or I would go into stores and get yelled at by my local bait store owner because I'd be opening the slammer packages and wiggling them to look at the joints. Not all the joints are symmetrical. They'll be off. And then the slammer will wiggle like almost on its side. Oh yeah, that's a Black Beauty.
I think this one's, this is the purple. I think it's Purple Nurple.
Is that what it's called now? What's the Black Beauty might have just been plain black. I thought that was Black Beauty. Anyways, that's amazing. I smashed him on the Delta on that. Scared to throw it.
Evidence, right? No clue what to do with it. So
throw it out and reel it in. I'm not even joking.
So so give us noobs on the wake baits.
So on the noobs, right? That's
that's
part of this. That slammer, the best bites, and you could talk to old guys, the older guys. The slammers that swim kind of like they have injured? A hitch in their, they have a weird roll, and you're like, this isn't swimming right. Those would get absolutely clobbered by the big fish. So I mean, if a lure isn't doing the right thing, but it's just like it's like a crankbait, right? If you're throwing a crankbait and somebody tells you it's great because it hunts, good crankbaits hunt, and it's like it's a direction, and that kick out triggers bites, just like when you deflect it off of a limb, right? It's a kick out.
Sure. So with your when your crank down is one of these, is that what you're? Because I know you said reel it in, but like,
so if I'm going to approach like, okay, what should I throw? A glide bait or a wake bait?
Where would you start there?
The small one, the small junior you have there is more of a crank down bait. It's weighted heavier, so it doesn't stay on the surface as easy. Like you slow retrieve and like twitches it to walk it in place and get it to splash around. But that bait, I crank down and just like you would a square bill crankbait. It's exactly like it. You get it into the weeds, rocks, wood, deflect, just like any kind of hard bait. Like it's just like with that bait, you're going to want to do like, I'll do a lot of crank and pause, like real pause, real pause.
Yep.
And that causes a directional change. A lot of times twitching on the surface, slow waking it and then pausing it, and then a couple fast cranks so it shoots under. That's probably the number one easiest way to get bit. Like throw it into a shade pocket, but you need to do the fast cranks because it shoots under. They like rats that do that too. If you throw a rat, walk it in place, and then 2-3 hard cranks of that handle, and they'll hit it as soon as you get to that third crank of the handle, it'll load up. But if you think about swim baits as an extension of your regular angling baits.
See, that's the hard part for me is like, because they just don't look like, what do I look at something like this and I'm like, oh yeah, that looks just like there
isn't anything like that, but you when you throw top water, right? When you're thinking about a wake bait.
Oh yeah. Yep.
A popper sits still. Great bait. I love poppers. A spook. Now a spook, I think is very similar to a wake bait. Not because they get bit at the same time, but because it's subtle on the surface. It's
Yep.
not like a crawler or a buzz bait, but it's doing more than just being there, right?
Right.
Like it's walking. Now, if you reel a spook straight in, I'm sure you get bites some days. Actually, you can just reel it in. But they like it to walk I mean, whatever it is about the zigzag, obviously is great, right? Glide baits, everything to do that. But the wake bait is just like it's like a subtle buzz bait, if I could describe it the best. Like if you throw buzz baits, like you'll have buzz baits that you want to crank in, they'll be on that burn. I like to burn buzz baits a lot. But sometimes they just want it like gurgling where it's not even on the surface. It's like,
yes.
It's the same thing with wake baits. It's the same thing. It's not even a little bit different.
So, okay. So would you say messing with that? Because like we were talking before, I feel like I am super confident with like, you know, if we're talking topwater, a spook, you know, like on a calm day or, you know, a popper. Last year it was the popper for me. I feel like I could go anywhere and catch them no matter what on a popper.
Okay.
But it's like at no time am I like, oh, you know what? I bet a wake bait would be better now than this topwater. So what do you have, I guess, any conditions maybe that you look for a wake bait? Or
I've caught them in everything. Early shade lines, like, okay, wake bait. They're going to eat up.
So typical topwater type of thinking, like a frog or a walking bait.
They're eating up. So like very rarely are they crushing a wake bait on a super clear bluebird day at 1 PM.
Right.
I'm not out there throwing a wake bait in the middle of the day. That's when I'm throwing a glide bait if I'm going to stick to the swim bait, right? But I'm doing the same thing with conventional. In the morning, I'm throwing a popper, pop, pop, pop. Or I'm usually like, I'll throw a frog and then back it up with a popper if they're not eating the frog. And then, they're not eating that. Let's throw the spook if it's, like you said, conditions, right? But then as it gets to like 11, 12 o'clock, you know, what am I going to do? Do I pull out a drop shot? Do I pull out a Texas rig? You can pull out the battle shad. And you'll have more success if you think about it as a worm, because then you're going to get it in the weeds. Swim baits will draw fish. They have draw power, right? But unless that fish is ready to eat at that moment, he might come follow it, but that doesn't get you nothing. All that does is the fish sees you.
That's all I've got. I've caught a handful of fish on a glide bait. Most of the time I can get them to follow it, but I can never like, you know, get him to just go crazy on it.
Well, with the glide bait, it's like, that's why I was leaving that to last. But so, you know, with the soft bait, if you're using the worm, you want to get it in there. Like they will come and look, but you want them to bite it, right? You want to have it in their face so they can't think that much. Like, if on live scope, if you throw a wake bait over the middle of the lake in clear water, you'll see fish shoot up from the bottom but they won't commit. So what's the point, right? Like if they see it, they know it's there, but if they're not going to commit, even if it's cool to watch them when you're fishing a swim bait, you get to watch them with your eyeball. But if you think about it like, it's the same as live scope, these fish aren't going to eat anyways. Come back, use it as a tool, come back with a Cinco. Like if I go in and throw a glide bait and all they're doing is following it and I can come back and catch them with the Cinco, to me, the glide bait did its job because they'll never show where they were. Yeah, sure. I just totally use it as a tool. And so like a glide bait though, people will say it's like a rip bait. It's harder to get bit than a rip bait. Glide baits can be hard to get bit on.
Yeah, that's exactly why I've gone down the whole like walking kick. I know I showed this and Cesar laughed at me. He said, "Did one of your daughters make that? That's 9 years old?" No, I'm kidding. He didn't. But that's that's what I've gone down. You know, is this rabbit hole of these, you know, these small glide baits that really kick side to side like a jerk bait. Because just like you've said, that's what a lot of people have said is, Debo, don't be scared of it. Think of it like a jerk bait. Same thing as a jerk bait.
Yep. But how often do you just reel it in real slow?
Well, see, that's how I started. And I had nothing. It was just taking one and reeling it real slow. And I'm like, this
Did it look like crap?
Well, I mean, it looked fine. It looked like it was just something, you know, gliding.
I like an example I could use is the S-Waver 168.
Yes. Okay.
The S-Waver 168's been around since longer than most glide baits. I'm not even exaggerating when I say I've seen as many personally in person. I've seen as many 10-pounders caught on the 168 as I have the depths 250. And I've seen multiple of both when I'm on the boat. And if you look at the 168, it kind of quote unquote swims like crap. But the fish don't seem to think that. Like, you don't have to file the joint, none of that. Just fish it. And the thing about glide baits is a lot of times you're fishing for feeding fish. You have to remember that. Yeah, windblown banks. I love windblown banks. But glide bait fish have to be feeding, right? Because you don't have that reaction bait trigger. You know, like with that's why I like crank downs, like that snapper. Well, it's not a snapper, it's a Wade Junior. I had to change the name because somebody trademarked whippersnapper. So I had to. So it's Wade Junior, but it's the used to be known as that. But that bait, I'm gonna try to get it to deflect, because just in general, that's a triggering mechanism, right? Or I'm gonna get it to splash on the surface. With glide baits, it's like you have to remember that you're putting in front of fish that are feeding. So if it's in general, it's a great search bait, but it's going to find fish like you're finding them, where they just follow, right? Mm-hmm. But once you get a fish, if you get a bite dialed, I think then you could really get them with that glide, right? Because you're like, okay, the fish is positioned looking northeast because the wind's coming in and the sun is here, and they're positioned on this piece of cover. Let me get that glide bait, and it's where the cover is, and then you could just chop it, and it's in his face, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're eating, they're actively feeding.
I think a lot of it is just not having, for me, I need to take a day where I just take those. I try to do YouTube videos whenever I'm out. So it's like for me to take a day or two and just burn on fishing swim baits, thinking I'm not going to catch anything because I don't know what I'm doing, scares me. So I always revert back to what I know, So I think I need to take the days where I take just those. And from everything you're saying and other people that I've listened to, it's just like the conventional stuff. You're thinking of it the same way, like you said, knocking it off of stuff. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking square bill, swim jig, something like that, ripping it through a little bit of grass, with the glide bait, working it like a jerk bait off of points, rocky points, stalling it.
And ripping the glide bait out of grass. Like, you could let it fall into the grass, especially if you don't get slimy grass, and you could snap it out of the weeds. Bro, I would throw a 168 into the weed line if our weeds were snappy enough and just rip it out.
So let's talk about, let's say somebody just getting into glide bait and or wake bait fishing, do you think like the S Waver is one of the best like starters at, 100%. Under $50?
S Waver 168, 100%.
Okay. And so you're saying you don't reel it slow. You're more kind of chopping it by stuff. You're using it more. I do everything.
If I'm making a long, it just depends on the day. It's just like, I don't know if it's bad, if it's not good for advice, right? But like, if I'm out, I'm looking at the conditions. I'm not like, oh, I like to chop a glide bait. What's the water temperature? Is it spring? Are they eating bait fish? What bait fish are they eating? Was it cold last night? You know what I mean? Like, is there a front? Is there a storm coming in? That's what makes me personally determine how I'm going to retrieve the bait, and also input on the water. Is there birds diving and eating bait, or is it just kind of like, So I'm going to I'll slow creep that, and just let it. Sometimes I just want it to barely do anything,
So you're just trying. So you don't really have certain
I don't
okay.
I don't nothing.
It's windy because so that's a question I've always
they deflect
had.
Great. Yep, they're made to deflect. I made these baits. I lived on the California Delta. If you don't know about the California Delta, it's a very shallow impoundment. Weeds, woods, rocks. Never have to fish deeper than like 12 feet. Super heavy cover and stuff. And these baits were developed to excel in those non-traditional swim bait areas of power fishing. I'm fishing them on 25-pound.
That was my question. So let's get into that. Let's say the smaller guy, because that's where I'm starting.
Yep.
So something like this is like what? Is it an ounce, 1.2 ounce, 1.3 ounce, something like that?
2.3 ounces.
Oh, it's 2 ounces. This thing is.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, so for something like that, what would be your setup?
Well, I have my toxic swim bait rods.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, I have two. I have the Genesis series, which retails $150, and it's the toxic.
What?
It's the Sniper Swim. It's 7'6". I actually made these for the same reason, like you're saying. Like it's not an 8-foot rod. It's not this big cumbersome beast that you need, and it's rated from 2 to 6 ounces. It'll throw all my baits well. And then I have a Quercus model, which is 200 retail, and it's like cork grip and a little softer bend. A lot of guys I'll recommend that if they're going hard on the crankbait stuff, on the treble hooks.
Is that on like the iRod website? The iRod
it's
one?
on Tackle Warehouse, iRod website.
Oh, what? Holy
yeah. In the Quercus, it's the 764 swim bait. It's a 764 in their swim bait models. They have flipping models, but their swim bait rods is a 764 in the Genesis and the Quercus. The Genesis is called the Sniper Swim to match that thing. And the Quercus is the Toxic Swim. Because that was later and we were able to do that. Me and Matt are working on another rod also. So when you go in there, you'll have to go in. It's kind of confusing. You go to iRod all the way on the right, and you have to go to the Swimbait series, the Swimbait casting rods. Not air. I don't have one in there, but keep going down. There it is. Go back up a tiny bit.
This one? Oh, wait, what?
Right here.
The Genesis?
On the right. On the right.
Oh.
That one. So there'll be a 7.6. So it's in the Swimbait rod, 7.6. Boom. So that's my model.
I didn't know that.
There. 2 to 6 ounces. And it's so I made this so that you don't have to have these big giant rods, right? It works great. That is the Genesis, so it has a stiffer backbone. It shuts off a little early. The Quercus model is also on here. Like I said, it's $200 for guys that like the a little higher modulus, and then a full cork grip,
this is only
a little
150,
fancier, right?
Because like the Dobbins Fury, the Swimbait one, like a lot of people recommend that one. I've got that one, and I've even thrown like, bigger ploppers on it. But
that one's heavy and cumbersome, in my opinion.
Really? Okay, yeah, because I thought that one wasn't horrible.
This is a lot lighter and balanced. It's a great Alabama rig rod, actually. Like if you throw Alabama rigs, this thing is so money.
I don't.
But
those also scare me.
The other model, I don't think it's a better rod. It just it's a little softer in the transition. The Quercus, but yeah, these are great rods. But if not for like a small swim bait, my recommendation is down there 205.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, it's the only one they got in there. Bing bong. So it's a little nicer there.
I wish everybody did that.
Oh, so you like that? A lot of guys requested this, so we upgraded.
I hate when it's those like just the regular. And somebody made the comment that I have. What'd they say? I have fragile fingers or something like that. I'm like, no.
Oh, because it's hard to turn the other ones.
No, I hate because maybe not with swim baits and stuff, but like with Texas rigs and jigs, I always lay my finger up here, and like just the regular. And these aren't as bad. They've kind of backed off a little bit, but I don't like the lines up there. I like something soft, like
I get it.
Kistler makes like a foam one, or a cork, something up there that's just flat. It's just more comfortable to me. So I wish everybody did that.
Whole hand in front of the trigger too. I think a lot of people fish their hand behind the trigger.
Yeah, I just have my pinky behind the trigger, so you have your whole hand in front of it.
Usually my whole hand, yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
I didn't know those were yours. Neat.
Yeah, and iRod's cool, man. Matt Newman, swim bait, old swim, been around forever. He did the big bait posse so long ago.
I don't know. I've never owned an iRod. I've heard people, throw them, but I don't know anything about them.
Well, he's grassrooted, started it 15 years ago, and he's still the only worker. He's got a huge lineup. The rods have developed into amazing products, and he's a swim bait guy. And he actually takes care of the people that, like I have that signature model, and he takes care of me way better than he should. Like we sell a lot of that SKU, but he's one of the good guys in the industry. So
that's awesome.
regardless of if I had a signature model, I would support them. And be honest with you know, in my journey of fishing, Ben from Lowdown Customs, which is the best swim bait custom rods on the market, in my opinion. I've been with him since day one. Amazing rods, right? Like, of course, those are great rods, like that upper level. But I'm a dynamic fisherman. I like to fish everything. Like, I love swim baits, but I like fishing for sharks and anything, right? So, like, I need a whole
Shark fishing has been slow here in Iowa.
I need a whole lineup, and I just found that like you could, you know, for 90% of the guys out there that are fishing, you know, you could just, these are amazing rods and setups, and like you don't have to spend $1 billion. And if you're just getting like that Wade Jr., my recommendation would just be thrown on a flipping stick. Like
that was my question too. Like
Yeah.
what kind of line? Like would you say mono? Like your like big game?
Big game's great line. It's thick and it's stretchy. As long as you remember that it's thick and it's stretchy. A lot of people will crap on big game, but there's that 11-pounder that my buddy caught on the Delta was on big game. I've caught my biggest fish in my life on big game. But I use P-Line PF. It's a copolymer. It's their original copolymer.
Oh.
And I use that because it's thin and it's cheap and I can re-spool. And it's very strong. I've used it for over 10 years and never had an issue ever.
Yeah, I've been using the CXX for the bigger stuff.
So the reason I don't use CXX is because it's
wiry.
cable.
It's big. Yeah, it's wiry.
But if you look at the diameter, I'm using 20-pound PF. It's like the same as 25 or 30 CXX.
And, I've never used that one.
Yeah, it's not everywhere. They have it on Tackle Warehouse. Just original copolymer. It's blue. It's like a gray blue. I'm so sold on. I use all line, right? Fluorocarbon braid, whatever it calls for. Our wake style baits. I think wake style baits are the best, bro, for beginners. You just throw it out and reel it in.
Like, see, I barely ever. I just don't mess with them. So that'll be fun getting into that this year. There's Arthur, good buddy.
Yeah.
Cesar, big bait talk. Yes, sir.
But yeah, I think the problem is just the whole approach, the questions that you're asking are very typical of people getting into it. And I think it's like over analyzing the situation. Just like when you get a new crankbait, you don't buy a new rod for it, or like,
right.
Like very few people have a buzzbait rod. I know guys do, because I got 40, 50 rods and I have one that's perfect for a buzzbait. But trust me, if I'm on the water and I don't have that rod and I need to tie in a buzzbait, I'll tie it to a freaking swim bait pole. I don't freaking care. You know what I mean?
Right. It's like we as fishermen, we like to overcomplicate stuff, right? The fish don't care what it's on. If you can make it work for you.
Yeah.
So like a heavy, kind of more of a moderate fast should handle most like. Oh, I think what's your the river to sea S-wave if you're starting out is.
Oh man, dude,
1.5 ounces, something like that.
What I used to throw when I really got into swim baits, I was like in one of the worst times of my life, and I had $0. And when I was really starting to get into it, you could go to Bass Pro Shops. They have the Graphite series. I haven't been to Bass Pro Shops a couple years, but they have a series called the Graphite series. And they make telescopic. Hold on. They make telescopic flipping sticks. And they're like $40 or $50. And there's a 7'6" heavy and a 7'6" medium heavy. And the 7'6" heavy, I put so many wake bait fish in the boat with that $40 rod. It's absolutely bonkers.
It's just like, dude, it's just like basketball. Just like I did, kickboxing for like 12 years. It's just like any of those sports where it's like, you don't need to have all the fancy stuff. It's like a time on the mat, time on the court, time on the water always is going to trump that stuff,
Yeah. So like, I'm not advocating to buy Bass Pro Shops $40 rods, unless that's what all you can afford. Right. My real recommendation would be to buy my rod, not because it's like, monetarily good for me, because I really got to design the whole taper. It's not just like a blank that I put my name on. Like we worked on it and changed it a few times, and the taper is exactly what I want, and everything's exactly the way that it's set up. And it's been received well. It's one of our best selling SKUs at iRod. So, I mean, that kind of says a lot for just a little, swim bait guy.
That's cool. Yeah, I had no idea you had rods with them. I'll have to
And
check
it's
out Iron.
affordable, like affordable is important these days. And that's why I'm really stoked on being able to offer the ABS stuff too, because like you're saying, right? Like, and the question we had, that the guy said, I'm worried about snagging it. Like, yeah, I get it, dude. Like, I don't want to lose $65 either, bro. Like, I don't want to lose $20. I'll go in for
Right.
$20. I'm swimming, Actually, I've been getting my butt kicked in the salt. I've been losing some Alabama rigs, and those are not cheap to lose,
No.
So I'm like, all right, I'm designing a new Alabama rig so I can fall the way up. You know what I mean? That's what makes me a bait maker, because I was like, not like, how should I get fish better to not get these snagged? I'm like, I'm making my own.
Yeah, and that's it's funny because you hear that from a lot of guys that have, I make jigs, like these little ball head jigs, and it's like you hear that from a lot of guys getting into the jig stuff. Is like, I lose them so much, I'm just gonna make my own. It's not that you're gonna save a ton of money, getting into jig making, but it's like, I've always got them now. I'm tired of losing them.
Yeah.
Of my own stuff. What's your reel? What do you recommend for a reel for folks?
Daiwa Coast. I should have one. Daiwa Coastal 200, or Daiwa Tatula 200, Daiwa Zillion. I don't know what the number is, 15 something. The heavy duty. They have a Zillion heavy duty. I prefer the Daiwa 200 series. The Coastal series.
And those are on sale now too, because they're coming out with the new version.
See if the 200's there. They still sell it. I just got some.
Yeah, they're on sale. The new version of it's coming out. So 134 if you want one. 200 size.
Oh, there you go. Oh, the new version is sick though. I was supposed to get one, but there's not that many stateside. But the new Tatula is sick. So
yeah,
it'll be around soon. But for a steel, right here, and the Coastal, if you really like want to get something that's great, it's that's not the 200, right? Go down.
Oh yeah, that's
the 150. I love the 150, but it's not. That's more of like a small swim bait conventional reel. They might not stock the 200, but I don't think they're taking that out.
I think they do. There's the 80. Oh,
there
right
it is,
here.
right there. That's the best swim bait reel in the market, in my opinion. I've thrown up to depths 250s all day on it, 6 ounces. The bearings are beautiful. It lasts forever. I know that it's horribly blue.
That's a big thing for me. So I'm a super gear nerd, and the amount of companies that don't like, that's why I like those Tatulas, the 150 and the 200. That is the lowest price reel you get that has an aluminum frame and an aluminum handle side plate. And they're tanks.
Flex is important, especially like bearing supported pinion gears and stuff. And you can see that because it's salt, it has like the brass gears inside. And it has, I mean, now that I live and fish the ocean only, of course I have to get them serviced. But on the Delta, I'd fish those things for years and not do nothing, and they're just perfect. So
yes, gators. Do you see those knobs? So I like a big old knob to grab onto. I'm not ashamed of that. Oh, fishing speaking.
Yeah. Well, those are that's on stock.
I hate those little tiny like reel knobs that people put on. It feels like I have to despise those, dude.
I actually love the DRT handles. I have a couple. They're $200 reel handles, but I'm actually friends with DRT Tamoya. They came to the United States and we hosted them, and he's actually a big fan of toxic baits, and I'm a big fan.
Oh,
of DRT.
sweet.
So he gets me,
but
he gifted me a couple handles, which is amazing because they're expensive. And I'm like, no way I would pay that. But now I'm like, oh man, I might need to buy more of those handles. Actually, Swimbait Underground has this new tool they developed. It's because they have a special thing, you can't really see it. It's for the DRT handles, but it also is for your reel. You could work on your reel with this handle. It's like remember those skate tools?
You pull it out and have the little T. Yep, for taking your wheels off. And
so this is cool. You keep it on the boat. Man, the reflection is brutal. But you keep it on the boat and you can work on your reels. Cool. Look at those knobs. It got me because we're talking about swim baits, and like I think a lot of times you get real. It's not even like it's hard to reel them in, but I think you get real excited because it's swim bait and you're like, and even me sometimes your hand will come off of the reel.
Yeah, for me it was frogging because like if in
Okay.
case anything goes down or you get scared or like you just need to grab on quick, the big
Yep.
handle's great. Like if you're
Yep.
really winching them through grass and stuff, if you have just a little handle where you're like, man, you can grab the whole thing and just you don't have to think about it, you know? So yeah, I've
Yeah,
picked up like a
totally.
couple of the Gomexis ones, and even
Okay.
those are a little bit expensive for me, you know, they're like 45, $50, but
Yeah.
dude, they're just so nice. I wish more companies would do that.
Daiwa sells that handle that comes on that reel for $50 for
Oh,
any
really?
Daiwa. Yeah, that's what's really nice about Daiwa too, is like the Tatulas. You could buy those handles for $50 and put them on. And
Hmm.
also, you could call Daiwa. They're right here in SoCal and Cerritos, and mail them your reel, and they'll service your reel for like $18.
Dude, their customer service, that's a big thing for me. I've been in customer service since basically I graduated high school, but
Okay.
um I've had to call them multiple times to get some parts and stuff for me and my buddy whose reel I worked on. They've been exceptional, making sure you have the right number. Super nice. I've called Shimano the same thing. I don't know where they're out of, but
Yeah,
both
I
of
think
them
they're
have
close to
been
each other.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, and and that's why I've chosen Daiwa now that I've used them for so long. But there's great reels. I think a lot of people like Luz, a lot of people like Shimano, and you're gonna get what you pay for with reels. That's just a fact. And that's
Especially with
why,
big baits, you know, like
yeah,
with a lot of the smaller stuff, you know, smaller cranks or topwater, you can get away with like a cheaper graphite frame reel.
yeah,
But yeah, once you get into the big stuff, just the torque of, like you were saying, when you throw out a bait and let's say you don't stop it with your thumb quick enough and you accidentally engage that handle, the force of the pop inside that reel, like you said, you've got flex, you've got, especially if the pinion, you know, inside, which is what your so your spool, let's say your spool's here and the shaft of that goes through the pinion, it can, you know, just barely bend that. That's when people say, well, I caught a big fish, or I accidentally backlash and hit my handle. And then you start reeling it, you hear that,
oh, yeah,
you know, that's what we're talking about, is that getting out of whack
yeah,
in there.
yeah, for sure. So, and that's why I choose the Tatula, because even $134, like you
Oh,
just showed,
Irvine.
you can't beat that, man.
Whoops.
Yeah,
Irvine. I don't know where that's at in California, but
it's down the street from me actually in Long Beach, and Daiwa's like 40 minutes or 30 minutes from there, if that, and like Lake Forest or something, like right down the street. So they're both down here in Orange County. That's why I say when I made the move here to be around the industry, it was an important move. Everyone in California is pretty much located in the southern area. So that's why that was one of the factors of me coming down here.
so
Yeah.
what in your whole bait, I'm going to go back to your stuff here quick, because I do want to send people over your way. You've
Yeah.
always been nice to me and from the community, because like I said, I had a bunch of people recommend you. So what would you say is, let's say somebody had a flamethrower to you and said you can only pick one of your baits to throw forever. What's like your favorite one? I don't know why flamethrower. That popped in my head.
What's me personally?
Like one, yeah, you get one. They say you can only fish one of these for the rest of your life. Which one would you pick?
Okay, favorite and only fish one is two different things. But
Okay, give us both. Give us both.
okay, my favorite bait is these. All these are sold. Go down one more. Those bugle lips right there, the koi looking,
These?
the goldfish. That bait design. Those were my personal baits that I sold recently.
Oh, okay.
I do that every few years, and then
Oh, that's pretty cool.
I just use new ones. I like to use what I'm making at the time, But that bait is like an MS Slammer. It swims wonky. It's my worst selling bait. That's my worst selling bait. It has, but the joint's really cool. It's different than any other joint out there. It's like a reverse V joint with a knocker stopper on there. It's like it's kind of it's definitely my own design. But if I was going to fish a bait the rest of my life to eat,
Yeah.
I would fish that micro mink right there, that one. But
So tell us about these. Tell us about like the rat micro, or no.
I call it the micro mink because back in the day, I threw big rats. I throw the muskrat and the XL mink, which are 6 ounces and 15 inches with the tail. So that was my kind of like jab because I was making these things 8 years ago when I was just making 10, at a time. But it's a bait designed to crank down. People think that rats are topwater baits, and that's really like the worst way to initiate yourself into fishing a rodent or terrestrial style bait, because that's like saying, like in the animal kingdom, there's not animals that like can't really swim, like I mean,
They've
there's
got
some
to, or
that
they get smoked. Boom.
are frantic, but like
Yeah.
they like rodents that actively live around the water, they swim under the water. Even sewer rats will swim under the water, but rodents that live in the wild and they're like around a lake, they know that the boogeyman lives under the surface. Like they know
So we're talking like little muskrats, baby muskrats, or
minks. Minks are everywhere. Ferrets, whatever you want to call them. Minks live anywhere there's creeks. They're coming in to lakes. Muskrats, squirrels fall out of trees. Now, if it's a squirrel falling out of a tree, right? That's just going to swim on the surface, sure, like a wake bait.
Right.
But far more terrestrial rodent animals than people even think about are swimming under the water. All my 10-pound fish on rats have come subsurface. That micro mink was made to crank down. Like guys get it and they're like, it doesn't wake. Yeah. So, and then like I personally put lead tape on it or weight mine with lead so they almost suspend. And then I'm just like creeping it, twitching it, and they absolutely choke them to the crushers. But, like they know. And I mean, I have this whole, if you want to know about.
Oh yeah. Neutro.
See all of them. There's all kinds of stuff. Go on my YouTube, and I have a thing. It's old. It's years old, but it's called Rat Theory. Has tons of views, and it's like me breaking down everything about years. I fished only the rat for years on the Delta. Lost the biggest fish of my life. Caught tons over 10, limits near 50 pounds, like all kinds of stuff back in the heyday of the Delta. And I'm telling you, I went to Georgia and pulled out the big rat and pulled giant fish.
So when would you go like rat versus like a fish shape, just based on what you're seeing, like what you think that they're eating? Or is it just kind of a toss-up?
I think the rat thing is more of like I'll have it on separate, right? So if I'm going to go down a bank, like a lot of times I'll be on the Delta, I'm going to go down the bank. I'll have a wade hogs. I like the bigger wade hogs to wake. Bigger wade hogs. Because you should know when you're throwing a wake bait, you can get away with a bigger bait. For whatever reason, they'll eat, say, the full-size wade hogs. They'll eat it on the wake. Bong, bong, bong. They'll be smoking it. But if they get off the wake bite and they start eating a crank down, a lot of times you'll get the same amount of bite frequency with the smaller bait. For whatever reason, I think they can just see the bait under the water better. Because you could get away with big ass wake baits. Like on the Delta, I could throw a 8 to 10 inch wake bait and get bites like steady. Start cranking it down, you're only going to get those big bites, the biggest ones. You're not going to get the 4s and the 5s and the 3s. Like the smaller fish attack the wakes,
He says you're not going to get the big ones, those 5s. I'm thinking, oh my God, I'd love to go out and catch a bunch of 5s.
Well, I mean, like a 5 will like in your area, just match the hatch. That's like the key, right? Like if throwing a big bait as a novelty is just that. It's just a novelty. But like if you're at the lake and you're up there where it's cold, like if there's trout in the lake, the fish eat them. I mean, they just do.
Yeah. So what I guess advice would you have for somebody? Because that's something that I say a lot. I know a lot of people say a lot, and I know it's a mental thing, but like, okay, I live in the Midwest. I know I'm not, West Coast guy where they eat the big baits, where they're more finicky, but I know they do. I've got buddies that throw them. I've got buddies that have said, oh, I caught a good fish on it. So I know it's the deal. What would be your advice to somebody, in the Midwest or places where they think the big swim bait isn't the deal? what would be your advice to those guys to get them into like?
It seems like all those locations you're talking about, I sell baits all over. You guys have a lot of ponds more than lakes.
Yeah,
Is that true?
smaller lakes, like anywhere from, a couple hundred acres to, I mean, bigger lakes around me is like 900 acres. Like that's a big lake, my area. A lot of like 200-acre lakes,
Are they
small lakes.
shallow? Or are they deep?
Relatively shallow. Yeah, a lot of them might only be like 20 foot deep.
A lot of wood and tannic water, or no?
We have a lot of stained water, a lot of grassy lakes. So some of them do get cleaner, when they're grassier, but a lot of wood, a lot of like rock jetties.
Man, I would only have my baits out there. I wouldn't even throw smaller stuff.
So what would you throw like around that stuff? Are you thinking like
Exactly my baits? Like you're describing a lake version of the Delta, like straight up. So ambush predators. You got to remember, like these fish that you're talking about are ambush predators, and a lot of the fish that California traditional swim bait, shad eaters, pelagic. These guys in Texas are catching these shad eaters. Those are pelagic bait fish eaters. Those fish are swimming in the water. Like these California guys that are catching these trout, most of them are catching them on rocky points or like, they're able to see and target this fish and
like
go.
a dock or a point, like on some big wood or something.
And the water's like 30 feet viz, 40 feet, like they see it. So when fish live in an environment full of wood, weeds, cover, they're ambush predators. Like they're going to wait. They see it way over there, but they're not going to swim towards that shit. They're going to wait. They're like, oh, he's coming. And they just pop out, On the Delta, a lot of times swim bait fish will come out and try to get it, a glide bait fish, but you don't get the second chance. Like lakes, you can throw back and they'll come back on it. But he was there. He's ready to pop out on him. And what'll happen, so I don't know if you noticed this on cover orientated glide bait fish. Say you're gliding your swim bait, and here's the stick, and you're gliding it up to it, and you go here, and the fish is going to shoot out on it, and then you reel it, and you don't know he's there, and then it goes this way, and then you see a fish go where your bait was. A lot of times, cover fish will like watch the glide, and then you're like, you don't know they're there, and then you get close, and you make that crank, and at that same time they shoot at you.
Shot, yeah. I think that's what happens with frogfish a lot. Is people say, "Oh, I can't land it," but it's like that's why I've started waiting more until I can actually feel the weight, because they'll just hit. If there's a little bit of scum or anything, they're just hitting that movement where they can't see it. It's not like they have a perfect sight of it. They're missing it a lot.
Yeah.
So would you?
So they missed it, like so. But just them feeding that way, right? Like them waiting and feeding it. So I'm going to throw a wake on weed lines or back in pockets, pitch my lures back in pockets. Like if it's like a shade pocket in cover, I'll use the snapper, especially if I'm not used to throwing big baits, so I can make an accurate presentation in there. It's still important. It's still important to try to make a small splash in a shallow environment. And then I'll twitch it in the pocket and let them look at it. Then start a little retrieve and let it swim out. And or if there's wood, I'm going to throw it right in the wood. If you look at my YouTube, I uploaded the cast to catch of the 11-pounder, and you can see my buddy Joe. He throws it into a tree. You can see him throw it right into the tree. And he cranks it down 2 cranks, and that fish shoots out and grabs it. So I mean, there's an example right there of them just kind of like the fish are in there, and they will move for bigger baits more than for smaller baits. So in those cover stuff, you just have to fish a lure that'll do it. Like the Wade hogs, if you look at it, and the snapper, the bellies are the same width as the treble. So they're not so wide that the fish is going to grab the bait and miss the treble hook, and they're not so skinny.
Sticking out side of the body.
So they're not so wide they stick out the side, and they're not so skinny that the fish can come up and grab the bait, and then the hooks are hanging right there in its mouth because they're too small. Because they'll grab the bait, they can't squeeze the bait,
right?
And they'll do that too. So with them being the same width as the bait, when you're bringing it through cover, the same principle applies. You're going to knock right through it, and the trebles don't snag. Like on the Delta, we have toolies, lots of toolies. I've released right through the toolies. Like Once you get under the water and start ripping a little bit, the trebles seem to swing and grab a little more.
Sure.
But
Sure.
on the surface, these baits will knock right through that stuff. It'll push the toolies, to a moderate extent right out the way, and it'll deflect off cover. And they're just like other baits. Like you could throw a
It's like a square bill. So I mean, you really just need to think of like a big square bill, just a really big square bill.
100%. If you throw a square bill, I was just going to use an example, down a weed line and don't touch the weeds, you might get 2 bites. If you go down there and hang the weeds and snap it out and get that deal, you're going to really trigger some good bites on that. I mean, traditionally, I know sometimes it might not apply because nothing is true all the time.
Sure.
But
sure.
Most of the time, you want to snap it out. Like my buddy back in the day, he caught a 9 and a 7 on the wake and crank. Same cast, like they both ate it at the same time. Yeah, it's really cool. It's on my Instagram. His name's Brandon Lum.
What's the biggest you've caught out there? Did you say 13 was your biggest?
Well, yeah. I mean,
or your buddies was?
I never estimated. I mean, I never weighed. I have multiple fish in that same zone, but I got rid of my scale a long time ago because so the internet made me get rid of my scale because I really, it upsets me when I see people on the internet. First of all, if a guy is like, "Oh my God, I caught this fish," my friend Travis from back east, he's caught 915s like multiple times.
9 15-pounders or 9 pounds 15 ounces?
9 pounds 15 ounces.
Oh, I was like,
and it just crushes him
because the actual number.
And I'm like, that's a 10, bro. That's a 10-pounder, not because it's going to deviate, because the year.
Yeah, I'm counting that as a 10. 9 pounds 15 ounces. That's a 10.
Fish, right? So like I say a 9-pound summer fish is way cooler than an 11-pound fish in the spring off a bed.
Sure.
Way cooler. I don't bed fish at all, but just in general, like it's the same fish, even if it's the same fish, right?
Right.
Why is it cooler when it weighs 2 more pounds because of this, you caught it while it was vulnerable over you tricked it. I mean, I don't even care. You had to trick it both ways, right? It's easier in the spring, 100%. But the fact to me that the fish is the same fish, and then people will just like roast guys. They'll be like, "I caught this 7-pounder," and they're like, "Bro, that's a 3-pounder. You're such a liar."
Right.
And we're old enough to know. Like, I remember having the disposable cameras.
Oh yeah.
Slugs, like. Put them on a measuring board. Like I measure my fish, and I still do. Like I know my measurements, so I could estimate my fish. But you're like, "Oh, this is an 8-pound fish," and then the picture comes back, and you're like, "It looks like a 4-pound."
Wait a minute, yeah, you're like, "This looks like a 3-pounder."
Yeah, so
I mean, I wouldn't be able to say that, but
I'm in general, I'm just like that kind of turned me off too. But I've caught some fish that were like the biggest one I caught in the weight hogs was 27 3/4 inches and 21 inches around. It's really big. It's like estimated in the teens, but that was the day that everything worked. For about 30 minutes, everything worked.
See, I don't, there's no shame in my game. I weigh, show, whatever. It's like, I'm not known for catching big fish. I just like to go out and fish, so yeah, I'll hold it up. And if it's, a 2-pounder, 3-pounder, whatever, I don't give a damn. Yeah. Cause dude, there's so many, like, I don't know if they're lonely or if they just get like love getting a rise out of people, but yeah, people just need to mind their own business and not be such pricks because there'll be people out there all the time. Like, "Oh, you think that's big. Yeah. You suck." Of like, dude, that guy, where this guy's fishing that he's proud of, the biggest fish in that lake might be 4 pounds and he caught a 3.5 and he's proud of it,
And like you said, like
let him be.
Yeah. That guy went fishing to catch the fish. He's just trying to show what, it's like if some kid was like, "Hey, put my art on your refrigerator," and you're like, "This shit sucks, dude." You just threw it in the trash, bro. Like it's horrible. So I mean, we all have our days that we do certain things, but that was kind of my push back against the people like that, like the know-it-alls. And because at that time I was fishing 200 days a year,
especially in the big swim bait game. Like, I mean, it's even more of a trophy thing then of like, oh, you think you're tough crap because you got a, what it is, oh, 8-pounder, whatever. And I don't know.
Yeah,
It's a weird, like, I've met really nice, and it's the same thing for anything. I don't even know why I'm saying it, but I've met really nice swim bait guys, and then there's like the swim bait guys that think they're on a ledge above you, right? Because all they do is swim bait and throw big baits, and it's
yeah,
like, what do you got to prove? Good for you.
yeah.
So
I mean, I was part of those community. Been part of the community a long time, and there's other people in my community, like I say, my community in the swim bait community that are hardcore that I've had some disagreements with about like size of fish because of region or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
sure.
Like even though a 7-pound fish is a trophy in your region, whether it be north or wherever,
Yep.
it still isn't the same as like it still doesn't act or move the same as like an 11-pounder
Oh, I
in a
couldn't
different state,
imagine.
right? Like so that's I've had some discussions. I don't want to like I'm an angel as I have my
No, I don't
but
mean that, but there's
but in
definitely some
general,
guys that are
like young
come
like guys that are just doing it. Like I'm in the industry, right? Like this is what I do every single day. So when guys that get to fish like twice a month, which is most guys once a month, it's like an
yeah,
amazing day to get out and somebody's gonna shit on your fish.
exactly.
That's whack, dude. That's so
Exactly.
whack. Like I
Yep.
don't even want that energy around like
Yep.
get out of here, bro. Like
Hey,
just
also you got to show us your hand there. I didn't know this. Caesar was showing this before. One of his best buddies was from. He's got a freaking Hawkeye on
yeah,
his
there we
hand.
go.
Come on, dude.
Yeah, got the
I
Hawkeye,
didn't
man.
I didn't know that. I
It's my
mean,
guy.
that's
So
you're even more a more legit supporter than I am. I
I
feel
know I
like
see the hat. I was
like
like, oh
kind
shit.
of a
And
sissy now.
my high school colors were black and gold, everything. I
I
used
love
black and
black and
gold for
gold.
toxic. Yeah, man.
Black and gold or purple. Those are my two deals.
Okay.
What's okay? Here's a question. What's your thought on purple in bass fishing and or purple baits?
It works. I don't know why, but it works. That's all. That's
Yes.
it. I mean, there's not even a question about that, bro. There's no argument. And talk to the East Coast striper guys. That is a serious color. Electric grape. Like I was just throwing a saltwater jig that's like purple the other day trying to get bit because the water was a little bit, the water was a little bit dirty. So let's see what this purple's gonna do.
Oh,
But
love
man,
me
I
some
used to
purple.
use. I even had a combo collector, whatever that was called, the color selector back in the day.
Oh, the color selector. Yes.
I used to have one of those.
Hell yeah.
And you know what? Purple was like always recommended. Like no matter where you
That's
went,
because it's
it was like,
amazing.
yeah, purple, purple.
You remember back in the day, tequila sunrise, man. If you weren't throwing a tequila sunrise worm,
Well,
you were missing out.
in California, margarita mutilator. If you're not throwing a
Oh,
margarita mutilator, you are messing up because that thing works everywhere. I don't know why, it just does.
okay. Let's see, we're at an hour, just past an hour. What do you guys got? Let's start doing some rapid fire questions. Throw them at Caesar. Anything you've got, swim bait stuff. I mean, this has been a wealth of knowledge. So I just want to thank you for coming on, dude. It's been
Yeah,
a lot of fun.
yeah.
From what I keep hearing, I mean, it sounds like a broken record is you just kind of got to stop being a sissy. Think of them as an extension of regular fish, of regular lures, and go fish them.
And apply it when it's there. If they're eating silver sides, don't throw a giant lure. If they're eating little smelt,
Well, so here's another question. Now that we got sidetracked, it
yeah.
almost sounds like a lot of guys like me or guys in spots where they don't think a swim bait's going to work. Is there a thing as going too small with the swim bait and not really getting a benefit out of it
I don't think
versus
so.
a big one? No.
No,
Okay.
I think that's the like big bait or go home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Match if there's no big bait fish in there, why would they eat it? Like I break it down to the very basic principles. Like as a bait maker, of course I have to throw my lure when they're not going to eat it, right? And being a guy that's researching, I want to know if they're going to eat it, even in off conditions.
Sure.
But if I'm like fishing to catch fish as a specific purpose, like I'm going to try to catch fish, which is funny to say. I do a lot of fishing that isn't actually trying to catch fish, just trying to like try stuff. But
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, for you for sure.
yeah, I'm gonna match the hash. Like, what are they eating? And you know, if they're not eating this, I'm going to change. Like I'll throw a 3-inch swim bait, and not because I'm throwing a swim bait, because they're eating little fin fish, right?
Small bait.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like it's perfect. 5 to 6 inch swim bait. What would I say? I say the greatest swim bait ever invented and it's proven itself in tournaments and big fish and usability by all anglers and catches fish everywhere is the Bass Tricks Hollow Belly Minnow. Now there's a lot of knockoffs and people can throw whatever they want. You know, it's a free country. But Bass Tricks is owned by my friend Brian now actually, and they brought it back into a great form. It used to be kind of inconsistent and you couldn't get them. Well, now you can get Bass Tricks and they are great. And that design is my number one. If I'm not making it, if you got to get a bite, you could get it on the hollow belly. Oh, they don't even have their swimmers in. They just have their two. Oh, there you go.
Here we go.
On the left.
So this one?
Yep. And you just rig it on a beast hook. So they have the 2, 3. So I throw the 5 and the 6.
So a 5-inch of this with so you're saying just a belly weighted. So you can throw that over wood and
that thing you could just throw it. I mean, of course, yeah, you want to throw it wherever, but you throw it on a beast hook. I think the 5-inch is pretty small. I throw the 6 and the 7 actually, and they don't sell the 7 except for special order because you could see actual length, right? The 5-inch is 4 inches, and it's 5 inches with the tail sticking backwards. So the 6-inch,
okay.
So the 6 inches is actually about a 5.5-inch bait, and the 6-inch on a 5/0 beast hook or flashy swim, whatever. It really is unbelievably hard to beat.
So like a 6/0 for that bigger.
I'll throw 5/0. 6/0's big.
They don't have a 5/0, 4/0 or 6/0.
Beast hook?
Yeah. Unless they're out of them.
They must
Maybe
be out.
Is it the flashy swimmer that has?
No, they have a 5 somewhere because I throw them on my for my bait. Any beast hook will work.
Oh, I don't know. Anyway, okay. Yeah, I've heard
they sell a 5/0 flashy swim for sure, and the 6/0's a little big. In my opinion, it's kind of that's like the first big.
I mean,
swim.
that one looks pretty. Not
Whatever
gonna say it's good because it's purple.
It has secondary action. The tail kicks in the middle flexes. It's just an amazing lure.
Yeah, I think my buddy Hank Baskeek has talked about these. He does a lot of like ledge fishing and knocking them down ledges and stuff.
Yep,
I've never thrown them.
Yep, I mean you can fish it on jig heads and stuff, but on a beast style hook, they vibrate, they swim great, they like the whole thing shakes, and fish absolutely destroy them.
Question from Brian Cesar: have you ever ocean fished with Dan Hernandez?
Dan Hernandez. I've never fished with Dan personally, but Dan's all over the place down here. He runs a bunch of children's tournaments, and
cool.
He's on the cattle boats. He's a cool guy, man. I've never fished with him, but he's definitely a staple in the Southern California community. And he promotes, he promotes positivity in the community. So that's great. I missed that last.
I love it. Oh, he was just saying he was looking at that iRod we were just talking about.
Okay, cool. That's real speed. 6.3 to 1, I'd say, or 7.3 if you're not really a crank guy. There you go, 6.3 to 1. 7 works great. 7 and 8 to 1, 7 to 1 works great for glides, but it's kind of hard to reel slow. I'm a high strung guy, so I prefer the slower stuff. And people say you could get a fast reel and slow down, but you can't slow down the torque, right? I'm throwing the new Police, the new DRT Police crankbait. I don't know if you've seen this new.
Mm-mm.
So DRT is a swim bait coming from Japan, but they have a new Police crankbait. It's like this big. It's supposed to dive to 40 feet. So it's like a giant crankbait. You can't reel that with more than a 5 to 1.
I've got, let's see, do I still have my?
I mean, it makes it makes the 10XD look small, So,
what's the biggest bait you've ever made?
I made a couple 12. I made a 12 and a 13-inch glide bait, and I made a rat that was like 18 inches with the tail and weighed like 12 ounces.
Damn.
Yeah.
What's the smallest bait style you'd recommend? Swim bait style. So that Bass Tricks. I think we just hit that one, maybe.
Bro.
How about like hard bait?
2.8 Kitech.
How about like hard bait? I think maybe.
Small. I think about swim baits just like I think about everything else. So there's a ton of really small stuff available. Personally, the whippersnapper, the Wade Junior, is about as small as I like to go. I have a slender snapper, which is a skinny version, same side profile as that Wade Junior. So it's a skinny version. But
okay.
My new bait, I mean, is this, like I showed you, it's like a goat.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about these because I saw a long time ago, I wanted one of your frogs. I don't know if you still make those, but that was the thing that I saw that.
Oh, I have a whole bunch. I've made a bunch of soft baits over there. They don't push them that hard.
Oh.
This is my new thing. But my Old Man River, the new creature bait that's coming out, it's a flipping bait, has these. I'm using this ball tail a lot, and this is actually a new swim bait that I'm coming out with. So I'll throw this in, and this tail wiggles really subtly, like a smelt or like a small bait fish. So I'll throw all sizes, but hard bait, it's hard for me to tell. Like there's so many good ones, right? Even Gancraft makes tiny ones, tiny glide baits.
I just got a couple of those. I'm excited about those.
The trout,
again, going back to like
the trout, crush them. The trout love those things.
Hmm.
So would you think that bass always eat other fish? So you would think there would be no bad time. I think bass eat crawdads a ton, actually.
Oh, for
and
sure.
A lot of times, I think when I'm cranking the rocks with my micromink, the brown micromink, that they're eating it because it looks kind of like a crawdad, to be honest with you. So
how about water temperature? Do you have, I know probably the glides colder water, but do you?
I have pictures on my Instagram of crank down ratfish in 47-degree water. That's cold for me. So I just suspend the bait. I just wait the baits to suspend. Like,
okay.
You know what I mean? Like I try to match the conditions. So I don't want it to float up. I want it to just hang. Even a glide, I'm going to want that shit to sink super slow. And then I'm just going to barely twitch. You know what I mean? Just like I would matching what I would for other things.
Blind Eye kind of said the same thing. I catch them year round, just different size during different seasons and conditions. Sure. Okay. Yeah, it makes more sense the more I talk to guys, but this is the type of confidence guys like me need. Any guys and gals watching, it's hearing it from people like this is huge. Just because even if I read it somewhere, sometimes you don't get the same, like it doesn't stick the same way as if I'm like talking to somebody. They're like, listen, I make these baits, I fish a crap ton of these, do this, and you're going to be fine.
Now I don't want people to take this the wrong way because this is cool. There we go. He has both rods. I was told by a very famous, kind of like my fishing idol mentor from where I'm from, about all my baits, right? And I showed him my slob stopper. My slob stopper is a walking bluegill or play the sky color water scheme. You could do both. I say match the hatch. I think color is very important because they see more. If you look at the way that weight baits sit in the water, they don't sit with just the belly. They sit down where just the back's out of the water. So they can see the whole profile. And I think color is the one thing that we can, it's like saying line, right? Like it's one variable I can control.
We can control.
I'm very adamant about the colors that I put out there.
Diggs just became a member. Thank you, Diggs. Appreciate it.
I was on some tangent, but I forgot what it was now.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I popped that up and
no, it's okay. What was it about? I can't remember now.
I don't remember anyway. Okay. Well, listen, any last minute questions? I know I did have one thing. So go check out Cesar's website. It's at what is it here? Just
toxicbaits.com.
toxicbaits.com. He's got some cool stuff out there. Like I said, I appreciate that he's doing the the ABS baits because that's a lot more palatable for people. And somebody like me getting into he upgraded. Thank you, Diggs, for upgrading. Appreciate you, brother. Awesome. A lot more palatable because I think that's part of it is, like we were talking before, people think they have to get these expensive swim baits, a new combo, this special rod, time on the water,
I don't think that at all. I mean, if you go out and you throw it on a flipping stick and you're like, this is sick, dude, like you really enjoy it, then sure.
Right.
Sure. Go get a great rod, But like some guys tried. There you go. There you go. That's one of the things. Oh, I was talking about my mentor that told me a very key thing about making baits that'll help these guys. That is the number one thing in fishing. I think casting accuracy is the number one least talked about thing of people having success. And it's because it's hard to tell people that they can't fucking cast. Excuse my language. And you talk to guides and they'll tell you the same thing.
Sure.
Practice your casting. It's very, 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 it's one of the most important things. It's
well, like you said, one of the things we can control every day should be a casting test. If you go out and you're not catching stuff, that's what I do is I practice different casts, skipping or, flipping into hard spots. Even if I'm not catching them, I've still got stuff I can do. So,
So Bobby Barrett told me, I shouldn't say, he told me, the slob stopper is awesome. It's a walking bluegill bait, right? It's cool. And he's like, what the crap am I going to do with this? And I didn't understand what he meant. And he's like, I'm a guide, bro. I'm a guide. You want to sell these, right? I was like, yeah. And that's for casting. He's like, most people can't even cast this bait where it needs to go, Cesar. And he wasn't saying it like these in a derogatory way. We were having a conversation, like, amongst professionals, right? Like,
sure.
Like,
yeah. And that's the truth. If you have somebody that's not out fishing all the time. Yeah.
So he's like, you have to design baits that they can put in their hands and they don't have to think about. They're not us, right? Like guys like me or Bobby or professional fishermen, we're broken. Like I don't mean it in a negative way, but like I live and breathe this shit. Like I still get it. I still can't even sleep before I'm going fishing if I know I'm going to fish the next day. And I've been doing this shit nonstop. Like, so a lot of us are really in depth, and it's not saying that people can't fish or whatever, but you could take baits like these throw out and wind in baits and just put your time in with them and then start to collect the data, right? Like start to collect all the data of what's happening and apply it to your lake. Cause I've never fished your lake, and I'm a firm believer that fish in different bodies of water have different preferences.
Behave differently. Completely.
I've been to
even around here. I've got certain lakes around here where I can almost count on them doing something. And then I try at a different spot and it's like, no, I've never had success doing it.
So, so I try not to be really hard in my, I want to give people the best advice, but if I told you like what works for me, it probably wouldn't translate, right? Like sure. I'll be like, 3 days before the new moon, you need to hit this window on this tide. I can break it down all the way, but it's literally going to do more damage. He's saying like, I'm not trying to frustrate people or keep knowledge, but it's like, okay, you guys fish. And if you haven't fished a lot, then just consume as much internet stuff as you can, and then go to the water and then focus on the things around you. Don't watch your glide bait all day. Watch the birds. Notice how many birds are on the shore. Are they on the west bank? When they're on the west bank, where's the sun at? Is there you can see
all the different variables starting to put all
water
together.
All those things are like keys so that next time you show up, if you catch a fish in 6 months, when the breeze blows on your cheek from the left, you're like, I remember
that one day.
And then it's the best when you like make the adjustment and then make the cast, and then it's like catch the fish. That's like the best, bro. So that's my recommendation for all fishing, but especially swim baits, like max the hatch. If the bluegill's in your pond, like when the bluegills are this big, throw the Wade Junior. When it's July and August and they're this big, throw the Wade Hogs. I mean, I literally just take it at that. But also remember, like, they will eat the Wade Hogs even because it's looking up. If they're looking up, they'll eat that bigger wake bait. I can't tell you why. I think it's because it looks smaller, but I don't know why. Because I used to throw like 11-inch slammers, and those are just hot dogs. And Delta fish don't eat 11-inch baits. I mean, very often. I'm sure somebody's like, yeah, right, dude. But in general, it's a tough push. They like that 9-inch and down on the Delta for the most part. So, but that wake bait, they'll go, little guys, they get real hyped. So, yeah, and it sounds like you guys have the right water. If you have water that has a lot of cover in it, I understand it can be daunting, but also, if you have a boat, I don't think there's any excuse because you just go get the lure, throw it on 20.
Yeah. Oh, that's completely different. Yeah. Throwing from the bank, it was like I didn't ever want to, but having a kayak now, like you can pretty much get anything out,
Yeah.
once you're in the boat.
And throw heavy line. Shoot. You might lose some fish with braid or something, but if you get your lure back,
right.
You can win them all. But if you're broke, like I don't like to spend money. I'm always broke, to be honest. I've made a lot of I've tried a lot of weird stuff that didn't really work out, so I'm not.
Hey, never know.
I'm not rolling in the dough here, but so I just I get it, and that's why I made the push to do this. And I have more ABS coming. I have like this is a line through version. These are coming out soon. These are like a 6.5-inch soft bait, very basic and simple. This is an 8-inch I'm coming out with. I know that's big for a lot of guys, but I'm trying to expand it so that Toxic Baits can offer swim baits that aren't $100, right? And
sure.
And my soft baits I've thrown those for years and years and years. I actually do a lot of research on my baits, and this is my big fluke style bait. Jeez. Yeah, it weighs 1.6 ounces and
1.6 ounce fluke. Yeah, that's like the size of fish I catch usually.
So I have a lot of stuff that it's like niche and stuff, but and it's because to me swim baits is just an extension of fishing. So
right. Yep.
So hopefully if people took anything from this, it's like just get something that looks cool and go throw it. And sometimes
time with cool, it. Yeah, time on the water. Time on the water.
You can rely on S-Waver. If you spend the money on a DRT product, you will get your money's worth 100%. A tiny class, low float, tiny class, you could just throw out and reel in. The Toxic Bait stuff is great. Mike Buca, he just recently came out with some ABS glide baits.
The trick, is it the Trick
Shad? Yeah, the ABS. So there's a lot of options for guys to just test the waters, and not even test the waters. Like, I don't even think, it's cool to step up to get the baits you want in resin, but you don't have to start with ABS and then I'll move up to resin. Just use what works for you. Straight up, dude. I'll leave you with this. I freaking live and breathe fishing, and swim baits is my favorite. Even I'm going to catch some bluefin tuna on them this year. I got this quick connect thing so I don't break them. I love it, right? But one of my favorite lures, if I had to catch a 10-pounder and you were you have to catch a 10-pounder in this amount of time or you're going to be dead, I would pick a 7-inch Cinco. So
I don't think I've ever even seen a 7-inch Cinco.
7-inch Cinco is a trophy catching machine. That thing weighs over an ounce, I think, too.
Yeah, but I think I've got some 6s, but yeah.
Oh no, 7's a whole different animal. But but there's attributes, right? 7-inch Cinco, it's weightless, it falls enticingly of the whole thing, but it also weighs enough that you could cast it far enough away.
Sure.
And the fish don't see you. Huge deal. I guess I should have said that swim baits. Be very quiet, and even though you make a big splash, if you can get away with not making a big splash, that's good. But you're fishing for trophy fish, you have to treat it like that. Don't close your compartment on your boat. Don't wear boots on your boat. Guys get mad at me, and I know it's a thing, not in the city and stuff, because I wear boots too. But don't wear combat freaking boots or hiking boots on your boat, because when you're stepping on your boat, it's like a bass drum. Yeah, people used to make fun of my Crocs, and now they're popular. But I literally started wearing Crocs because they didn't make any noise on my boat. I fish barefoot now because I like to, not any reason. But
you're in California, you can do that.
Yeah,
it gets a little chilly out here. Sometimes.
Yeah, just but be aware of that. Even if
I've heard that,
boots, put foam on the floor, something, because it makes a difference.
Right.
So just be aware, and then don't be intimidated. But you do have to treat it like
time on the water.
Yeah, you do have to treat it like you're fishing for trophy bass, though, right? Be extra careful. I think that's even more now that giving advice on catching big fish over swim baits is paying attention to all those things. Casting angle, so sunlight, where the sun is, where your shadow is, where your boat's shadow is, how much noise you're making, And a lot of times you could get into a spot and then don't do nothing for a minute before you cast.
Just let it chill.
I always say smoke one, So
Rat theory.
yeah, like whatever you got to do, read a book, go on Instagram. If you could, you see rat theory, yeah, baby. If you could give yourself 5 to 10 minutes, not, of course that's hard, but
Let it
you're
settle.
going to do yourself a service. You're going to do yourself a service because all fish are wary, but those bigger ones are like, it doesn't take much.
They didn't get big by being stupid.
Yeah. No, and the trophy guys, the guys that consistently catch trophy fish, even if they have a favorite lure, they can catch them with anything. I've learned because the best fishermen I meet are incredible anglers in salt, fresh, doesn't matter where they go. Guys like that can catch fish everywhere. I've noticed, like these guys, I'm like, wow, this guy does, and it's because they're the guys that say shit like, I felt the wind shift on my cheek. I say that because my friend has told me that before. And I was like, what? I didn't pick up on it because it wasn't my body. I hadn't been on that bite. But those are the things. Like, it's hard because not everyone is tuned in to do it naturally. But if you really are adamant about paying attention to everything and getting like Bill Murphy's book, Bill Murphy's Trophy Bass book is incredible. He talks about waking up at the lake, like being there when the sun comes up, and you can't always do that. But doing that is like feeling almost like the energy of the lake. How many birds are flying? How cold is it? Is there fish popping?
It's really like any, going back to sports or anything. It's the time. Like I remember in jiu-jitsu when I was so tired of getting my butt kicked. It was like, why am I even doing this? And then it was like, all of a sudden, like these lights started going off where all these different variables started lining up, or, any sport, baseball, basketball, any sport you're in, like you'll get to that spot where it's like all these different things start lining up. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And especially when you hear people, bring up that stuff of little things that you've never thought about. You're like, oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah.
But listen, we're at an hour and a half fishing, friends. We're going to get out of here. Cesar, I want to thank you for being on. Make sure you go check out his stuff on Instagram, Facebook. Are you Toxic Baits, all the places they can find you?
Yep. Sure.
Check out his website. I appreciate you on. Everybody, love y'all. Thanks for watching. And until next week.